a lot of companies out there dabbling with AI in terms of growth, sales, and marketing. So I'm here with Gaurav Bhattacharya, CEO of Jeeva AI, and we're gonna talk about how to practically use AI for growth. Welcome to the show.
Very excited to be here, Lee. Thanks for having me and excited to be a part of your Exploring Growth podcast series.
Thank you. Yeah, this is fun. All right, let's jump right into it, and I'll try to monitor the comments as they come in. What we want to talk about are two things.
Yeah.
We want to talk about practical ways of using AI to support prospecting and list building. So
Yeah.
we'll talk about that specifically, and then we're going to get into how Gaurav is utilizing AI to basically go from 300 customers to 1,000 customers. So this idea of how to get your next 100 customers. A lot of the people listening are second stage growth founder CEOs and their teams. They're trying to scale up and scale up operations, both marketing and sales.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to learn here. Uh, Starting out, like let's sort of set the tone for the conversation. Where do we stand currently with AI being used for growth in a practical way?
Yeah. I mean, that's such a great question, Lee. And there's so many things that we can do. I'll give a quick kind of thesis about like how I got into sales. So when I first started my career, or even when I was a young kid, I grew up in a blue collar household. I lost my dad to cancer. Mom was a blue collar worker. We grew up very poor, but we had this uncle who was in sales, and we asked him like, what should we do, right? And he said this, and which I truly still believe. He said that in order to be successful in the next decade or 2 decades or 3 decades, you should learn how to code and you should learn how to how to do sales, like how to sell, because those two skill sets will never get taken away. And I was on a podcast yesterday where somebody was asking like what to do to be successful. And Sam Altman has this quote which I read recently. It's like he does say you should still learn how to code. And he says that at some point every job becomes a sales job. So you should be as close to sales as possible. But
Mhm.
the third most thing that I'll talk about is how to use these AI tools and how to have a knack for using like power using ChatGPT to Perplexity to Grok to all the LLMs, all the different tools. I think there's a lot of value in that. And that's what Sam Altman and both Jensen Huang and at NVIDIA talk about. So long story short, I do feel like there are practical applications like that you could use every day. Is the sales skill set lost? Not at all. You'd still need good salespeople. You'd still need good software engineers. But can you do 10x more? I absolutely agree. I agree with it. We use it a lot right along the life cycle. Like in order to get our first 100 customers, we power used AI. Like and we had the fastest journey. So a little bit about Jeeva AI. We basically power sales execs and again, like how do we help anyone become a better salesperson using AI? So it's used by founders, indiepreneurs, entrepreneurs, growth hackers. It's used by sales reps, account managers, account execs, SDRs, BDRs. We basically plug into your email and your calendar. We help you find leads, enrich data, do personalized outreach, all the way to inbound automation, outbound automation, chat automation, right? So the whole premise is how can you do better, faster, cheaper, and more things with AI. But it's not about like self promotion. What I want to talk about today is how did we get from, let's say, 0 to 100 customers, 100 to 200, 200 to 300, and what are we doing to go from 300 to 1,000 customers? And we're using AI everywhere. And that's kind of what I want to get into in like today's conversation.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a great setup. Let's go right to practical ways to use AI supporting prospecting and list building as part of that initial
Yeah,
stage of the journey.
exactly.
Let's start with prospecting.
Yeah. So let me start with prospecting. And we do this now inside the tool and it's free to use. So if anyone wants to use Jiva AI. But when we first started, what we were using is we found this tool called N8N and we loved it and we still use it every day. So one really easy application of N8N is we built this workflow where the AI was searching or hunting for companies that are finding or are hiring for SDR talent or account executive talent. So we had a certain hypotheses around what industries would want to buy a product like this. So we had set up these filters where it was constantly looking at Indeed, it was looking at LinkedIn, it was looking at 5 or 6 places where like monster.com, like all the different job portals, and then looking for who's hiring for SDRs, BDR, account executives, because we thought that these companies that are doing high volume of sales hiring would be folks who would be most interested. Again, like some of our hypotheses got proven, some of our hypotheses got disproven. But the first like 10, 20 customers we got was like all N8N sequences. The first one was find basically the top people that are hiring. We would then throw this list into Perplexity, which can also be automated by N8N. And we would search for indicators like how long these jobs have been open for. So, example, Lee, like if I were reaching out to you, let's say you are Cloudflare and you have 30 job openings for SDRs across different platforms, and some of these have been open for, let's say, like the past 6 months, then the easy answer to this would be like, why hire like a massive SDR team? You can 10x the performance of the current folks you have by using Jeeva AI. So that was the messaging we were using, and it was hitting because the punchline was like really solid. Now hiring has become a little bit easier. Like when we started last year, it was very competitive. It was very hard because everybody was hyper growth in, especially around the AI fields, right? So that was like one of the ways that we got this going. The second thing that we were doing for the first initial customers is we were basically just reaching out to our VC portfolio companies, and we were basically doing Slack messages. And I know some of this is spammy, but again, what we did was we built these automations in N8N where it would log in on my Slack, it would join a revenue community as an example, and then basically like interact with it for a first few minutes. And then we had coded where it would just go one by one, maybe like 50 people every day will be like, hey, Lee, I'm new to this community. By the way, this is Jeeva AI. If you ever want to check it out, feel free to just log in there. And I had read this article about like the early days of Pinterest and the early days of Notion, where the founders were basically just going into like Apple stores and
Yeah.
basically going and putting in Pinterest logos. So I was like, I was very inspired by that. I was like, we got to do guerrilla marketing. I got to be out there. But we found a way to like growth hack this and kind of like find it. So that was like one way that we got a lot of like personalized outreach out where we got the first initial traction. And then we did like a lot of work with existing communities, and that was like the first use of that. One of the things that I love, Lee, and you understand this in sales, is people buy from people they trust. So
Mhm.
what I've seen is in outreach, people, what AI has been misused for so far is like very lame messaging, which would be like, what's your favorite restaurant, like what do you do? What we try to do is like we try to go deep into psychology. So in sales, there's a couple of concepts that I truly believe in. One is called predictably irrational, and the second is called psychology of influence. And we use that in our messaging, and we just use ChatGPT along with these N8N workflows to then build these perfect sequences, which would basically be, if I'm reaching out to someone, I would talk about something personalized about them that catches their interest. It has to be around a latest podcast, webinar, post. It could just be like what's happening in their company or their industry. The messaging, every single line that we would use, it would be tailored to that prospect. So it would be, if it's your VP of sales, it would be very different. If it's for a CEO, it was very different. And then it would use things like loss aversion, like never miss a deal to your competitor XYZ, basically, right? It's like the benefit is not as crisp or clear as it is to, let's say, make $3 million more, right, next year or whatever, right? Hit your quota. But it's like loss aversion.
Mhm.
Rational talks about loss aversion. So we would use that. So we basically fed ChatGPT. So the sequence was N8N would basically go first find all the jobs that are open, go find their companies, go find their prospects. Once we had the prospects, we basically had an email reverse engineer algorithm where we would use ChatGPT because we were so broke in the beginning. And then we built all of this, but we didn't want to pay for Clay or Apollo or ZoomInfo. So we were literally just reverse engineering, and then we had an IP address that would ping the email to see if it's bounced or not. If it's good, then we would throw that into a perplexity table to do research on that company and find like one killer hook about them, which was like a latest podcast. Hey, I just saw that you mentioned XYZ about your growth story, when you went from 0 to 5 million in ARR. Really enjoyed listening to that. By the way, then it goes into like, this is what we've built at Jeeva AI. We never want you to miss a deal to your competitor, like the biggest competitor. So ChatGPT would then build the messaging for us. And that's kind of how we were running like our multi-channel sequences, all cold outreach, warm outreach, inbound, outbound automation. Everything was getting through this engine. And that is like what the engine got. And along with the community, right? Like growth hacking we're doing. Like I think I'm banned on all these revenue groups now or sales,
Yeah.
but I was in everything. And then basically that's kind of how we got to our first 100 customers by powering
Okay.
using these AI tools.
All right, let me jump in here for a minute because you just dropped a ton of wisdom.
Hmm.
Like, whoever's watching this after the fact needs to go back and watch everything you just said like
Yeah.
5 times to really absorb everything that you said,
A lot of
because
learning.
you've dropped, in my opinion, the gold nugget, the answer to, how to get the most out of these tools.
Yeah, exactly.
because there are lots of tools out there, and your team, it has really been smart about it. And I want to just sort of pull back some of those layers that stuck out to me. One is how good on you for going back to like the old school, Apple and Amazon, like reading books and looking at business principles and deploying those with modern tools. I mean, talking about guerrilla marketing and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that is genius. I think that that's a huge thing to pull out of what you just talked about, because that's the first kind of key insight into utilizing tools properly. It's having the right perspective. It's knowing your customer well enough to that you can actually use these psychological principles. And you said you reached out and you sent an email with certain kind of messaging, and it was, why hire more SDRs when you can use get more out of your current ones. The
Exactly.
reason that probably hit is
Yeah,
because if you're hitting the right person, they're sitting there thinking about that actual question. They're
that's
like,
exactly.
I don't want to hire more people. How can we get more out of the people we have? And when you hit them with that question,
Yeah,
man, that's why that exploded. But
that's exactly.
you guys are coming at it with a psychology, you're coming at it with business principles. You're coming at it with, taking these tools
Yeah,
and adapting them to real world use, meaning
that's
how
correct.
people actually think and operate in their businesses, real problems that they're looking for solutions, and real psychological principles that have worked in the past. And
Yeah,
I think that's the money piece
yeah.
to all of this, because there's a lot of tools out there. But to now know that you built a tool and you have a service that someone can utilize, knowing the team behind it thinks like this, is next level. I mean, it's definitely a unique advantage in the market.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. And I think we keep going back to like talking about like how people buy from people they trust, and I think trust is built by understanding the market. And if I can come in, and long time ago, I was talking to the SVP of sales at Amazon or AWS, and we were talking about we had just closed like our first $1 million deal in my last startup, and we were very excited. And the guy and their team had just closed their first $1 billion deal. I was kind of wild. So I got an opportunity to talk to this guy. I don't know where he is now, but through some Indian connection, we got in touch with him. And he was talking about like it's all about like the challenger sale model, right? Like how do you build expertise is by showing that this is what we do day in and day out. We're really, really good at this. We understand your market, we understand your industry, we understand your space, we understand our space better than you, and we can educate you and show you a different way and a better way. That's like instant trust, instant
Yes.
credibility. Obviously, there's a relationship aspect. There's a fact that if you have social proof, if let's say if you're Salesforce, there's already a trust that comes with it. But if you're not, you almost have to be the disruptor, and you have to kind of show and educate people a better way, a different way of doing it. If they see that, then they'll trust you more, and then you can earn your business that way. And how do you use that and code that in AI? And it's by using these tools like N8N, by using Jeeva AI, by using Perplexity, or whatever it is, but using these tools to understand the deep psychology of that job title, that person, their industry, their company, their current situation, and predicting that and crafting a narrative and a messaging around that is probably like the way to go. And that's kind of like what is the best use of AI right now to do better sales, better marketing, better everything. And that's kind of what our biggest focus was, at least to land the first 10, then from 10 to 100 customers.
And how does that change going from the first 10 to the next 100 or 200, 300? Is there a big shift in how you're utilizing these tools, or okay.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think so, Lee. What I found was that, every channel gets stagnated pretty quickly. I think in the old days you could pick one channel, let's call it meta ads, and then you could just scale meta ads forever, right? And you could get to 1 billion in annual revenue or whatever 100 million, and you don't do anything else until you get to that second thing. I think like there's this guy called Parker Conrad, and he talks about this, and he says that in today's world and economy, it's all about being a compound startup. And what that means is in the early days, you would do one thing really, really well, and that would be enough to get you to be the next Instagram, the next TikTok, the next WhatsApp. But in this market, if you just build one thing and you do go extremely deep into it, some big company like Meta or Amazon or Google can just come in and copy it and just kill you pretty quickly. So they talk about this thing called compound startup, and we truly believe that it's all about doing three, four things really well together. Unfortunately, that's kind of the market we live in. Imagine ChatGPT even, right? They have ChatGPT, they have deep research, they have the image model, the video model, right? You have to keep coming out with stuff, otherwise you get
I
killed
guess still,
by
yeah.
someone else. So what we focus on is something we call as compound growth, which is very important as well, which I started reading this concept about compound growth. And what that does, Lee, is it talks about how can you pick like not one channel, but how can you pick five channels and how can you make them work together. So we did a lot of experiments on what works for us, what doesn't work for us. And traditionally we had spent $0 in marketing. We were in hyper growth. So we picked a few channels, we did experiments. And then what works for us is one thing that we launched is product led growth. And I want to talk about product led growth from going from like, let's say 100 to 1,000 customers. Then we picked like newsletters at the top of the market, like top of funnel marketing with really good newsletters. And I want to talk about that. Then we talk about like meta ads and Google ads. And I think I want to talk about video and UGC and also using AI for that. So that's kind of what we use. We use cold outreach, like that hasn't gone away. Like we still do very personalized cold outbound, cold outreach, and then it's community. Like we've started building a closed group WhatsApp community that I want to talk about and kind of what we do with AI there. But these five channels is kind of what we're doing with AI. Maybe I can go into like each one of them and what we do there. I already
Please,
talked
yeah.
about like the cold outreach and cold outbound that works really well. Now let's start with like the easy part, like the meta ads and Google ads. They
Okay.
can they can be so expensive, right? Once you like
Mhm.
if you don't nail the cost per acquisition or cost per lead, it's very, very expensive. So what works these days in Meta and Google Ads is UGC content, which is basically a video of the founder talking about what we do, like comes off incredibly like genuine, very interesting. Or it would be like someone like you or some podcaster, some influencer, some thought leader, right, who knows the market, a genuine person coming in and talking about this. Or it just could be like maybe like your customers like talking about, hey, they found this product. I'm sure you've seen a ton of these, right? Like it's like, oh, I came across this AI tool, Granola. I came across this AI note-taking app. I came across this. I came across that. That's like the kind of content that works because video is like 70% of the world's content is consumed in video now. So what we do is we wanted to obviously scale this. And the challenge with this is what ends up happening, Lee, is if you are on Meta ads and Google ads, there's something called video fatigue. And it's not what Meta wants you, or what these platforms want you to do is they want you to rotate content. They don't want you to have that one video that hits, they'll stop making it hit because they don't want to board, they want engagement in their customer base. So it's pretty quickly, if you have like a short pieces of content, it gets like churned pretty quickly. So what we did was we used these platforms. First we tried HeyGen, and then HeyGen is like this tool where you can record your video once and it creates an avatar of the founder or like a couple of like people in the company, and then you can use it, you can give it a script. It's basically like I'm talking, I'll move my hands. It's kind of like AI robotic, but if you do really good editing. And there's a tool called CapCut for editing. I don't know if you've used it. It was built by TikTok. That's one of the best ones. There's other ones as well, but I think Deep Script is another one that we've used. I think Riverside's getting into that game too now, which is kind of interesting. But basically, what we did was we found Synthesia is very good with lip syncing. So you can use Synthesia. It's like $20 a month. So that's a really good AI tool to record yourself once. We use 11 Labs for audio because I have like a Indian accent. So I want AI to sound very authentic. So we did like a lot of like my podcast, like 7 hours of videos that I had recorded. I basically just put that in 11 Labs. It trains on my voice, and then we train like a really good AI model on Synthesia, and we just run this like a machine, literally. Like every day, someone wakes up and spends like an hour. What would have taken me and the whole crew to record and come up with these 20, 30 different types of scripts takes like an hour to do five different versions of the scripts. Every single day we added like into meta ads, and it just goes around and kind of like changes the feed accordingly. So our cost of acquisitions, like our competitors are basically spending $30, $50. Some of the bigger ones are spending even $500 on LinkedIn ads,
Mhm.
basically part like capturing leads. We're spending like close to $3, $4, $5,
It's awesome.
basically.
Yeah.
It's basically that. The other thing that we did was we did this exact same thing. We used VO3, right, which is still getting there. It's perfect yet, but it's the new tool, video editing tool by Google, and it's also an AI tool, but you can basically just like prompt it. So you can say like So we created like this a lot of UGC content, which is like talk about like almost a persona, and then we did editing to almost make it look authentic, which could be people interviewing and saying that, hey, have you come across this tool, Jiva AI? It's like changed my life, whatever, right? Like some kind of cool messaging that
Yeah.
captures people's attention. So that's like a big part of what we do there, just to drive product led growth. Because a big part of our strategy is we want to get these indiepreneurs, entrepreneurs, growth hackers, almost like all these like account executives that are tech forward or sales reps and sales BDRs. We want them to use the product, love it. They can pay us $20, $50, $100. Like we have these monthly subscriptions like N8N or some of these, hyper growth tools like Cursor. But then what we want is they will introduce us to their bigger companies, and a lot of our pipeline gets generated by that now. So that's been a core, like a big change of our focus. And for PLG, there's this tool called PostHog. So PostHog is awesome. So it's kind of like a Pendo competitor. If any of you guys have a software product or a mobile app or something that you're building, what PostHog does is that you can chat with it. So imagine, Lee, like every morning I come in, I have a dashboard which it tracks all my visitors. So in product led growth, we follow this philosophy. It's basically called these pirate metrics. It's triple A, triple R, which is awareness, acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, referral. Which means how many visitors can you get on your website? From awareness, how many can you have them sign up or fill a form? From that, how many can you activate, which is get them the product so they get some value? It could be a proof of concept, trial, whatever you call it. How many will keep coming back every day, which is retention? How many can you convert to a revenue funnel? And then how many can you do referrals? But the challenge is it's so many things to track. You can't track it with Post Talk. I can literally chat with it and say, look at my metrics and tell me where the funnel's broken. Like, why is it not working or converting for me? Because with AI, now it can say, this is what's not working. These are the steps I would do to improve your product experience, which is freaking amazing, right? This is like what AI can do these days. So that's like a couple of areas that let me pause here because I can keep going about this for an hour.
Yeah,
But
no, this is
I'll
amazing.
and then you tell me like how does this land, and happy to go into the
No,
other
it's amazing. I mean, all the things you're doing are very smart, and, you know, I'm just wondering, I'm sitting here wondering, like, where do your team come up with all these ideas? You
yeah.
know, how do you guys,
Yeah.
organize your thinking and your strategy around going after, meta in this certain way, or, cold prospecting in a certain way?
Yeah.
Because honestly, just from a
Yeah.
practical standpoint,
Yeah.
most people wanna do all this stuff, but
Yeah.
it's overwhelming. It's
It-
overwhelming to learn. I mean, you're in the space because you have this solution that you're providing, so you're close to it, but, I'd be curious to know, how do you guys approach all of this?
Yeah, it comes from the top, Lee, and there's a lot of resistance. And I wouldn't lie, right? It's not that everyone wants to do this, and unfortunately, those people never end up being good fits for us. But we have a small team, right, close to like less than 20 folks who are just working day in and night in AI. I have this investor who's Sam Altman's brother. His name is Jack Altman. He created this really successful startup called Lattice, which was like a $5 billion company now. And Jack has this quote which I totally love, and he says that in order to be successful in this next decade or 2 decades, you have to either be like super close to AI and be in it every day. You just have to basically be like, everything I do has to have some AI component to it. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it. I'm making something up, right? Or you have to be as far away from AI as possible. Basically, you're like a farmer. You're a painter. You're an artist. You don't want anything to do with AI. You want to be as far away, right? You want to grow apples, right? Like the most organic apples with your hand, and that's what you want to sell them. That's it. There's no middle ground, and I love that. I truly believe it. When I heard him say that, I was like, that is so true. And I said, I'm going to personally go all in on AI. Only going to work on AI and AI products and be like the master of AI. And then that's what I'm pushing my team towards every single day. And we have like a core group, even out of the 20 folks. I think we have 5 people who are just like obsessed with AI, and they wake up and they're reading about the newest thing. They want to try stuff, and you have to just constantly do it because it's like you have to kind of like keep finding what sticks, like you said, right? Like it's like, how do you find what works, what doesn't work? And in order to do that, you have to just go through a lot of things and trial and experiments, basically.
That's awesome. I'm already thinking that we gotta have you back on the podcast to talk more in depth about some of these specific channels you're running,
Sure.
because you guys are testing so many things that
And
there's a
we
wealth of information there I'd love to have. So you talked about Meta, Google, you talked about cold prospecting, I think, to some degree. Tell me about how your approach for newsletters.
Yeah, sure. So newsletters is really interesting too. And with newsletters, we're again running an N8N flow. And what we're doing with this Lee is basically what it does is we basically have these prospects who come and visit our website and we try to capture their email. At Jeeva AI, we have built this really cool tool where we reverse engineer the email as well. So, for example, if someone comes in, they usually have like a proxy where we are able to capture their name. We can capture their job title sometimes, maybe the reverse engineer the company name, and we can know like who's coming in, predict. It's not accurate, 90% accurate, but it's like 60% accurate to like what are the visitors. And then what we do is we basically send them like an email saying, hey, John, I saw that you were visiting Jiva AI, right? Or someone from your team was on. Here's what we do. Here's how we help other companies similar to yours. But what we do then after that, Lee, is we put them in like a newsletter drip campaign. And that's been working really well just for top of funnel awareness because we can run promos, we can run like free discounts, we can run like specials or like end of quarter specials. So what we do is we've basically used SendGrid and we use the SendGrid API. And we also worked with MailChimp, but the deliverability wasn't great. So it's a lot of manual work because you have to first create like copy. So let's say if you have a month, you have to create like 4 newsletters, maybe like multiple A/B tests. It takes a lot of time and effort. Now ChatGPT can do that for you, right? Now you can say, give me the copy. We use something called Lovable. I don't know, have you come across Lovable? Lovable is this okay. So Lovable, it's like I think your audience is gonna love this. You will love this too. Lovable is like one of the fastest growing companies right now out of Sweden. But what Lovable does is it does UI designs. So you can actually create a whole newsletter for you. Now with N8N, we can prompt Lovable automatically saying that this is the cadence we want to run in a month. So for the month of September, we want the first week to be an email about this, second week to be an email about this, third week to be an email about this. You can actually ask Lovable to create the UI design, the newsletter for you in your brand guides, in your guidelines, push it directly to SendGrid, create 8 variations of that, A/B test messaging, A/B test campaigns, and just send it out through the API. It's fully automated now, and we hit close to 300,000 people in a month now with that several times, different A/B tests. We can also say, because what ends up happening with these newsletters is only 30% are going to open the email, right? The deliverability is not that high. 30% open. Now you have 70% of the folks who never got it. So we'll resend it to them. And then out of the 70, maybe 30 will open, we'll resend it again. So we basically run maybe like 30 or 40 different versions of the newsletter like every single day basically. Now instead of like sending it in batches, 4 batches, it's running 30 days a week. 4 times we want to hit the prospects, right? Basically. And we want them to wake up and be like, oh, okay, like we know GII, like they keep bothering me or they keep sending me something personal. Next step to that where we want to get to would be, so Jeeva AI has this where we can send personalized emails, but it's not for newsletters. It's basically cold emails, cold prospecting, like one-on-one messaging. We're trying to take some of that secret sauce and put that in our newsletters as well. Where imagine if I send you something, it will be very personalized to you, to your industry, to your role, to what you do, know about you. We're not there yet, but that's like the next version. So we do a lot of work with newsletters that is working really well. Um, One of the newest things that we started doing, Lee, is also influencer marketing, which is brand new for us. So we're starting to learn like how to do influencer marketing. But what we did was we basically used like a database of influencers. I'm trying to think like what is the tool that we use. I'm forgetting the name, but there's
Yeah,
a
there's gotta be a database of influencers
yeah.
out there. Yeah.
There's a database of influencers that we bought, I think, or I think that we pay a subscription for. But we're just looking for keywords, and then again, like we're using the same prospecting methods to like reach out to them on email, LinkedIn, basically get a founder brand going, get in front of them, talk to them, build relationships, and then once we do that, then basically try to kind of like come to a revenue share model. This is very new for us, but we're probably spending a lot of time and effort in understanding how we can get coupon codes out there, how we can partner with them, maybe with some like initial, let's say $500 to $2,000 package where they do one thing for us. After that, maybe it's revenue share. So we're still experimenting with that, but that's something that I have a friend who runs this company called Motion. If you heard of Motion, now they're doing like 500 million in ARR. It's like really fast growing company, and it's all influencers. So I talked to him one time, and he asked me this question, which was really funny. He said, like is influencer marketing working for you? And I said, yeah, I have like 10 influencers that I work with all the time. Like he was like, I was like, I told him that, I'm actually telling my team to reach out to 10 influencers a week so that we can build this list slowly and organically. He was like, you should reach out to 100 influencers a day. I was like, what do you mean 100 influencers a day? He was like, yeah, go and find 100 influencers a day and reach out to them every day, Monday through Sunday, 7 days a week. So it's so funny he said that, but it's so true. They've done influencer marketing, UGC content, which can be used everywhere, right? Could be used
Now,
for ads, could be used anywhere.
what's that, the direction for that? What's his point? Is he saying you just need more numbers so you can close more of those to work with, or you're actually
Yeah.
gonna work with most of those?
No, what he was saying is that get a bigger funnel because what he's trying to say is that there's a lot of these micro influencers
Yes.
that are very cheap and very organic that you need to find, and they're not easily available. They're not out there, obviously, but they have like 200-person audience on YouTube, for example, 300-person audience. It's not paid, it's not fake, it's like genuine people. Go find those people and like keep going until you find like hundreds of those every day, basically. And you need
Okay,
a
so when you find those people, when you say it's cheap, what do you mean? How much are you spending on, a 200 person, 200 followers?
Yeah, yeah, it could be so for a lot of those, and again, like, so we're not really good at this. I'm giving you an example of this
Yeah,
company.
no. Yeah, no, but you're experimenting, and that's what I'm
Yeah,
looking for.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for a lot of these folks, Lee, they're like, even when they get a sponsored video, so they can put sponsored on their video, and even that is enough clout for them. So there's influencers
Yeah,
that I've worked with now that have
so they can
charged,
get more sponsors, yeah.
yeah, $20 to $100, which if you talk to any influencer nowadays, Lee, like if I reach out to them and I need to work with them, let's say if they're getting work from Canva or N8N or all these other AI companies, there's nothing below $1,000. Everything is like 1,000 to talk to you. It's like 5,000 to do
That's
anything,
right.
10,000. So, and they don't want to go lower because there are all these other companies that are paying them really high market value. And the unfortunate part is, Lee, that a lot of these social influencers are growth hackers. So it's not only that they have a genuine audience, let's say like the Kardashians, where people are crazy about them. Their audiences, a lot of them are like bots and followers that they've built. I mean, they're really smart. They understand the game. They've built this. Kudos to them. But then there's these like small indie hackers, like they're building like these workflow videos. I have a friend of mine who does a QA automation company. He had a really successful company called Rainforest QA, but they had technical issues and they pivoted. But they have their 100% of revenues comes from these YouTube influencers in the QA space that are just like out there educating people. They only have 100 followers. You can give them $25 and they just get happy with that sponsored post, but it is genuine. Like now it's a genuine, authentic relationship connection, and they would do work for you. They would go and be an evangelist for you, and that's what this company Motion has done. Has been able to do that. We're still new to this. We don't understand this game, but that's what we're experimenting with, and I think that's what we would want to try and test over the next 30 days. Is like reach out to like mass numbers of influencers instead of like the smaller numbers of the top 20. We're basically going bottoms up and try to, and by the time you get to the top and finish the list, there's probably 1,000 more influencers that are born already that are now out there
Yeah,
doing,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
especially in my space, it's sales, marketing, right? Growth, if you think
Yeah,
about it, like, and AI, agentic, like these spaces are filled with like new up and comers. So that's something we're not great at, but I feel like I think there's a whole startup idea in like being able to do that for companies, right? Big
100%. I
influencer
think
program.
you're onto it. I think you're smart to follow his advice, but also, I think that the meat can be, or the gold can be, in those smaller influencers. I see it all the time because I follow a lot of YouTubers that don't have very many followers, and because I find their stuff's interesting, it's new, it's fresh, it's, genuine, all of that.
Yeah, yeah, it's more less clickbaity. It's like
Yeah,
very genuine
yeah, it's not
content.
polished,
Yeah,
because therefore it's authentic.
totally.
Um,
Like, I'll give you an example. So a
yeah.
friend of mine introduced me to Andrew Huberman, which was like, yeah, I'm sure you've heard of him, right? Andrew Huberman, which was like 12 years ago, basically. He had like no followers, probably like 1,000 followers, and he did these videos that are completely unedited, 4 hour long videos, and I would watch them then. And I was super excited about this. I was like, this guy's freaking amazing. And obviously now he's become really famous, probably have millions of followers. But if you see his content, it's just like 4 hours of him looking into the like camera and talking to you. There's nothing else, and right? It's like there's nothing clickbaity about it. But I feel like, and these guys like Lex Friedman, even if you listen to Joe's podcast, obviously they're all really famous now. But there's like there's like Joe Rogans and Andrew Hubermans and Lex Friedmans who are just starting right now,
Yes.
like great content, and I feel like that's kind of like the sweet spot to go after and kind of get them.
Yep, I agree 100%. To wrap this up, this wasn't part of our questions here, but it just occurred to me, podcasting has to be part of your strategy because you're on this podcast, right?
Yeah, okay.
So you didn't mention that as part of your 5. Is this a possible 6th, or how do you think about that in your
Yeah.
strategy?
No, it is, Lee. It's not a, I wouldn't call it like a growth engine or a growth strategy, but recently I was lucky enough. So I know this guy, Nathan Latka. Have you heard of him? He's like a SaaS podcaster, uh, not a podcaster, but he's like a SaaS guy, and he's very famous, Nathan Latka. And so I actually caught him with a cold email, and he really liked my cold email. So he wanted me to come on his show and just break it down basically. So I started talking to him, and he has like this growth funnel, which I think you would love. If you talk to him, I can
Yeah,
introduce you guys. He would
yeah,
be awesome for your podcast and
okay,
vice versa. I think you guys should go on each other if you look him up. But he does this like founder master series, and I spent some time with him, and he talks about founder brand being like a really big thing now. It's like there's these companies that he talks about that have gone to millions of revenues only because they have a great founder brand. People follow their founders. People are These founders are everywhere, right?
I mean,
You see them everywhere. You see them on LinkedIn, you see them on X. They're controversial, they're amazing,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
opinionated, they're doing podcasts. And he was like, "Gee, you got to do more of that. Like, I can find you nowhere. Like, I can't find your company. I can't find
right,
you.
and
Like,
people are
more
starting
about
to they're starting to think that way, they're looking for you. If they can't find you, there's a brand marker there that's missing.
exactly right." So that's something that I started doing, and trying to get more. And it's also a network effect, right? Like I got a few, and then it's like easier to get the next few, and then it is work though. Like, it is good work in finding good podcast hosts, right? Like finding you, and then like trying to like send that outreach that you respond to. You're busy, so I have to follow up multiple times. There's time and effort that goes into it, but it's a network effect. It does add up. And if right, like if I do this, hopefully a couple of people will listen to it. Maybe they'll want to work with me. They want to maybe like use Jeeva AI. So there's like a small like these network effects that happen, which I'm trying to do more of as
I
well.
love it, and I couldn't agree more because that's really kind of our, ethos, at Signal Media, my agency, is that
Yeah,
it's about CEO-led or founder-led content because people wanna know, like, when they're checking the credibility box to buy, they're looking for a problem, solution to their problem, but they're also looking for the team and the brand, and, they're doing this quick search, and when they follow you, the founder, and they feel like they know you, there's a trust level there that sells, so that sales cycle gets reduced dramatically.
yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, this has been awesome, and I want to have you back for sure
Yeah,
to dive
for
more
sure.
into one of these things. I mean, there's something here because you guys are smart. You guys are working on the right thing. You're doing it the right way. You're not just trying to sell AI for the sake of it being novel.
Yeah,
So good on you guys. Thanks for the lovable referral there. I'm going to check that out.
for sure.
And
Yeah,
yeah, anything I mean, obviously people can find you on LinkedIn. We have you tagged here, but
nice.
where can they find you?
Yeah, yeah. LinkedIn, Gaurav Bhattacharya at Jeeva AI. And also my email is super easy. It's just G, like the letter G at JEEVA.ai, G at Jeeva.ai. I respond to every single email that I get. So very, very responsive there. Very active on LinkedIn as well.
Love it.